It hasn't been scheduled yet, but a great lot of work is being done on it. So, again, it depends on the filing of the lawsuit. Probably the week after the lawsuit is filed. But because they're ready. Chapter 1 is done, Chapter 2 is done.
It was a longer conversation than I thought it would be.
Okay. All righty. I gotta run. I have to run, Detective.
All right, man.
You take care. Do well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Well, here she is.
Yeah, that, again, was Detective Bedoya, White Plains Police, and Glendora. And what was the date of that? I believe it was October the 11th, 1993, Monday. We called Sergeant Fitzsimmons to find out if anything had been done on our case. And of course, nothing really has, except for Bedoya interviewing Theo Alpuche. And Sergeant Fitzsimmons said that she had been taken off the case. And she said something about that was the reason, because nothing had been accomplished. They haven't read the reports, apparently. We sent them a report every week in paper, what had happened. We'd sent them a videotape of 4 hours, and nobody had ever looked at the videotape. Nobody had ever read the reports. Well, she said she had read the reports, but she never discussed them. Anyway, she never acted upon them. And of course, there were all of those police reports, 20 or 30 of those, and there had been no action on any of those. So she said she was being taken off the case, and that she didn't know who the new detective was. And then she does as she did repeatedly. She found an excuse to get off the phone. So I called back several times, and I said, "Who is our new detective?" And nobody seemed to know. So I'd like to have you hear this conversation with the White Plains Police.
Hi, this is Glendora. Can you tell me who my new detective is?
Who your new detective is?
Yeah, Sergeant Fitzsimmons was taken off the job.
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know, is there anybody there who would know?
Hold on.
Thank you.
Here that knows that this is not
Okay. All righty.
Okay?
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye. You're stupid. On October 16, 1993, Saturday. Oh, can you tell me who my new detective is?
Who your new detective is?
Yes,
Who was your old one?
Sergeant Fitzsimmons was taken off the case.
Well, she's the person. How old are you?
Oh, no. It was her case from April to last week.
Well, I suggest you speak to her and she'll find out. She'll know.
Yeah, we've tried that. She doesn't know. Okay, is she there?
No. Monday morning.
And you don't have a book that tells you or a list that tells you?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you that this is the 18th time I've asked.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
White Plains Police Detective. Just have you sold already. Hi, could you tell tell me who is assigned now to Glendora? What detective is?
I have no idea.
Is Ann Fitzsimmons there?
I don't see where they're walking. Just hold on. Detective Captain Eggman. Hello?
Is Detective Fitzsimmons there, please?
Yes, she is.
Excuse me? Thank you.
Hang on and I'll get her for you, he said. It's a long wait.
Hi, Sergeant Fitzsimmons. Franklyn Buell, Glendora's husband. Who is assigned to Glendora's case now?
I don't know. That information has to be given to me. I'll have to speak with somebody and see if they can tell me.
Oh, you might have it, in a day or two?
Oh, I don't know. As soon as we're undergoing extensive changes in our department structure, so I may not know for several days.
I see.
Okay, thank you.
Has anything been done on the case?
How can I answer that question? I couldn't answer your previous one.
I see.
You know, any
In other words,
precipitated that question. Okay, thank you.
I see it's in a case of, that was Sergeant Fitzsimmons, who can't answer any questions because the department is in a state of flux. At 7:58 on Monday morning, October 18th.
I had left.
He didn't give me a name yet.
Okay. I'll check with you tomorrow.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Wait a second.
That was Mrs. Daniels, who's the
8:02
secretary
a.m. That's
for,
Mrs. Daniels, Chief Bradley's secretary.
and she said that the chief didn't give her a name yet.
Sometimes inside this is the NFL. Sometimes inside.
That the chief had not given her a name yet. And she said Friday that she would call me Friday, and she didn't. Isn't it peculiar? And I had made several calls to Sergeant Fitzsimmons, several calls the week before, and left a message, please call me. That was 5 or 6 times. And then I called several times and asked her to come to the phone, and she didn't do that either.
This is Walsh's radio. She keeps the door open. Her door's wide open. And this is coming into the common area in the front hall at 2:47 p.m. October 10, 93, Sunday. Thank you. The time is 7:13 a.m. It started at 7:08 a.m.
Police sergeant.
Harrison Police Sergeant. Sergeant who?
Harrison.
Is Andrew Klein there, please?
Who's this?
This is Glendora.
Glendora?
Excuse me,
I mean Andrew Larkin.
No, he's off today.
He's off today. I wonder if you would give him a message.
Sure.
Thank you. His son, Kevin, just went through our hallway making an undue noise, and it was harassment. It was intent to annoy and alarm with no legitimate purpose. He had a plastic bottle, which he ran down the banister, and this happened between 7:09 and 7:13 a.m.
Today?
Yes, today. Okay, well, you understand that I'm in White Plains. My address is 21 Greenridge Avenue, apartment 2A. His address is 21 Greenridge Avenue, 3A. And I want Andrew Klein, 1C and 2C. And I want Andrew Klein to know about this.
All right.
If you'd be so kind as get the message to him.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Sergeant. Bye. Okay, the time of that call now, 7:15 a.m. This is October the 22nd, 1993. And then when Glendora went out to identify what was the instrument of harassment, Roberta Walsh said, F-U-C-K, leave the kids alone. The kids didn't bother you. They're just going to school. And Roberta says, what time are you coming home? And James said 3:30. And then Roberta called after him as they went up the street and says, again, what time did you say? 3:30? And James Walsh said in a very sassy, bratty way, yes! And they went up the street to school. That time is 7:31 a.m. I've been busy writing this answer. About $600,000, Gannett.
You have reached the voicemail box of 9509. At the tone, record your message. To end, press star or just hang up.
John Porzio, the time is 7:31 a.m. at 7:09 on October the 22nd, 1993, Friday. At 7:09 a.m. there was a whole lot of noise in the hall. I went out to see what it was, and going up the stairs, all I saw was the heels of a boy. And then I heard the boy, and it recognized the voice right away. Of course, it was Kevin Larkin going up to James Walsh. And Kevin Larkin lied and said that Glendora had the camera out there and everything. Well, Kevin never even saw Glendora, let alone see any camera, and I didn't have any camera. When maybe 3 minutes later, Kevin Larkin and James Walsh come down the stairs again. Kevin Larkin has an empty plastic bottle. He is running the empty plastic bottle along the banister, making a huge amount of noise. They hastened out the door and started to school, and Roberta says, Jamie, what time will you be back here? And Jamie said 3:30, and then Glendora went out to the street to watch him go by the garden, and Roberta said, F-U-C-K, leave the kids alone, they aren't bothering you, they're just going to school. Well, she's very wrong about that. So I called the Harrison police. I asked for Andrew Larkin. He was off today, and I asked if they would take a message for him. It was Sergeant Hassett. And I said, would you tell Andrew Larkin that his son Kevin Larkin just went through our hallway, made undue noise, harassed us with an intent to annoy and alarm us with no legitimate purpose, and told him about the bottle and the banister. The time now is 7:34 a.m. And just a second, John. I have so many papers piled on my desk I can't find you today's joke. So I have to tell you a stock joke, okay? A stock joke. The boss says he believes in reincarnation. He says, did you ever notice at 5 p.m. everybody comes back to life? Do well, John. Bye.
October the 22nd, 1993, Friday.
That's correct, please.
Repeat?
That's correct.
Hi there, everybody. How are you today? I'm going to tell you what happened on Glendora versus Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, Jeffrey Barnes et al. The week of October the 18th, 1993, Monday. The docket came yesterday, and I'm going to show you that and bring you up to date on that. And the mailing went out to 38 people, and there is just one more file of backs to use up of Scott Lord, because you have to use up the backs of everything to save the trees. And I made a grid, and I spent 3/4 of an hour on Scott Lord today. And the Fredman computer, the Judge Fredman computer, says fully submitted, that apparently everything is in now. And at 6:55 p.m., O'Connell, trustee, Richard O'Connell, said that he had not received Scott Lord's final payment of $1,000, which was, it was supposed to go out October 3rd, and the final date would be October 15. So now Scott Lord has defaulted. That is the big news. Scott Lord has defaulted on his final payment to the bankruptcy estate. Scott Lord took Atlantis Lawn Sprinklers bankrupt, and he committed fraudulent conveyances with Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Barnes. They were fined $5,000, and Scott Lord had a judgment against him for $55,000 by the bankruptcy trustee, and then that was downsized to $12,000, and he defaulted back in June of 1993, and the trustee got another $2,000 cure fee onto that, making the payment $14,000. Everything was paid, as I understand it, up until this last $1,000, and Scott Lord defaulted on that. On Tuesday morning, I left Westchester at 8:30, and I went down the Hutch and over I-95 and over 695 and over the Clark's Neck Bridge, which in the tolls cost something like $6.50. And the Lincoln took only 1/4 of a tank of gas to do that. That great big car just took 1/4 of a tank of gas. And I went to Hempstead. And I went to 13 Center Street, which is the address given in all of the records for Tri-State Irrigation. And it is not there. You remember last year I said there was no Tri-State Irrigation sign on that building. Now this is on Hempstead, right next to the district court, right next to the district court, next door to it, in that little Center Street block that ends on Franklyn Street in Hempstead. And so Tri-State is up and gone. Like the Arabs in the middle of the night, the tent was folded and they left. There is no Tri-State at 13 Center Street. It is gone. And yet on the records it's still maintained as 13 Center Street, as if it were still operating and in business. Well, something's very, very peculiar there. And here's something even more peculiar. Next door in the same building, it's a building like this, a one-story building. It's 13 Center Street here in the corner, next to the other building that has the doctor's offices in it, next to the Mexican restaurant at the corner of Franklyn and Center Street, is a door, and it says number 17, and guess what it says on that door? It says the Scott Lord Group. And it also says for Evergreen and Atlantis, and there is an incorporation there. And this is the building that used to belong to his father, Marvin Lord. And there is no Tri-State sign there. And there is an Aquamist sign, and that company doesn't exist anymore. That was his father's company, and that company is non-existent. They never bought their, renewed their consumer affairs license. There's a memo to that in the files at Consumer Affairs. And it says, under Aquamist is Atlantis for Evergreen Lawn Sprinklers Group Incorporated, and under that is Irrigation Service, Wells Pumps, Black Flow Prevention, and the telephone number is 292-0300. And under this is an outline map of the state of New York, such as they used to have for tri-state. And in the middle of that map is a 17, I guess meaning that it's number 17 Center Street. And as I pulled into the parking space right opposite that front door, a tall woman came out of the door of number 17. And she was looking around the sidewalk, and she looked around the Franklyn Street side of the building for quite a while. And then she walked down to the Mexican restaurant, and she came and got some takeout food. And as she walked back, I had copied down all these things to tell you. And as she walked back, I said, "What happened to Tri-State?" And she was shocked, and she looked at me, and when she saw who it was, she didn't say anything, and she went into the building. And 10 seconds later, another woman put her head out of the hallway and into the door, the glass door, to look out to get a look at me. Now, it looks to me as though here is Scott Lord operating a business without a home improvement license, the very thing that he got arrested for around 1988, paid a $300 fine for. There was a warrant for his arrest, and he was arrested, paid a $300 fine for, and was on probation for 3 years. It looks to me like Scott Lord is running a business right under the nose of the Nassau County Consumer Affairs. Okay, that's all the time that I could take down there in Center Street, because I had to rush up to the Supreme Court building so I could watch the appellate term. Judge DiPaolo, Judge Stark, and there's a new judge. His name is Luciano, and he's from Suffolk County. And our Westchester County judge, Ingracia, was not there. So I watched the cases and the oral arguments, and they were all very interesting. And perhaps the one that had the most fireworks was Alan Freeman. Do you know him? He's some kind of a news service. And he was against Citibank. And Citibank had used him very badly on a house that Alan Freeman bought and paid $200,000 for. And he was really good. How he told how he was with Gorbachev and how he was with Reagan, and how he knew John Reed, who was the CEO of Citibank, and how John Reed said that he would stand behind him, and how everything got all mixed up. It was a terrible case. And he was there before the appellate division, the appellate term, to question the decision of a judge in a lower court. It would have to be in a town court or a city court, maybe a district court out there. Question the judge's decision not to vacate his default in making payments on this house. So Judge DiPaolo was very patient, and he listened to him. And at the end, he says, "You've taken us all around the world." He says, "You've got 30 seconds. And so that was a very interesting case. I'll be quite interested to see how the judges rule on that. Then another interesting thing happened. At the end, Judge DiPaolo spoke to me. I've known him for quite a while. And he told me how they're going up to Goshen. The appellate term is going to meet in Goshen. You know, they meet in White Plains 2 times a year. They're going to, and most of the time they're in Mineola, and I guess they go out to Suffolk a couple of times a year. But now he's going to go to Orange County, to Goshen, because this is, after all, the 9th Judicial District, and that would be Nassau, Suffolk, Rockland, Westchester, and Orange. So I said to him, I thought that was wonderful that he was going to go way up to Goshen. He says, well, they're taxpayers too. They got a right to see this process. So I said, what a guy, what a guy. And I told him a joke. And then the court officer, who is Steve Waters, and their court officer is nothing but a clerk dressed up in a New York State court officer's uniform. I've seen him come over to the appellate division in Brooklyn and get a clean uniform. And so he rushed me out. And I told him I'd been thrown out of better places than that. And the reason they rushed me out was that they got these tables together and the chairs, and they wanted to sit down right then and there and make their decisions. And so I went out and I looked for Tony Inferna, and I looked for Allison Kendrick, and I know quite a few of the New York court officers there. Bernie Levy and Sharon Levy and Ruth Gibson. So I talked to them, and I tried to find out if this case, if Tri-State versus the New York State Department of Employment, this latest judgment that I found in the county clerk and gave to Consumer Affairs, is indeed being challenged. And there was no index number on that, so it certainly wasn't in that court, the Supreme Court. And then I peeked into the door, not in the door, but through the window in the Nassau County Supreme Court. They have doors that have little tiny windows in them. And I looked in there, and there were the judges in their shirt sleeves, no robes. The robes had been taken off. And there they were, working away as hard as they could and as fast as they could on these decisions. And they have a new clerk there. Mr. Buckholtz has retired, and they have a new clerk there. And he has a beard, and he has lots of hair. And then I think the Irish clerk there, what is his name, something, he was there at the table, and the three judges, and there was somebody else, I think. But Joe Papillo wasn't there, and Mr. Montello wasn't there, and Steve Waters wasn't there. See, they bring all their own clerks and everything from Brooklyn when they go out to these places. They bring all their own staff, even their own court officer. And so from there, I went over to the county clerk's office to see if there were any judgments, new judgments against Tri-State, and to find out a whole lot about this lawsuit that Weisberg brought against Tri-State. There was an accident. Two people from Tri-State and a Tri-State vehicle collided with Mr. and Mrs. Weisberg, and she claimed damages against them, but Tri-State isn't, they don't seem to be coming up with the information that they need, like the insurance company and so forth, and that case just seems to be in limbo. Who's it before? Judge McGarity, Judge McGarren, somebody like that. And then I went to Cablevision and picked up the 4 programs of Glendora versus Scott Lord, Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Barnes, picked up those 4 that had been telecast and left 4 new ones, 4 new chapters. And you will be seeing those Friday night at 10 p.m. on Channel 25, Nassau Cable Vision. All right, then I got all the warrants on Tri-State that had been issued. Here is the printout. And here's the warrants. Here's 1. And here's 2. And here's this Weisberg case that I told you about. Susan Weisberg and Alan Weisberg, plaintiffs against Tri-State Irrigation, Michael Moralia, and Jose L. Lorenz. Apparently those defendants are in Florida now. And here's a Supreme Court of the State of New York, County Nassau. This is a it's about the venue. Affirmation of good faith. In a short form order, plaintiff's application pursuant to CPLR 3126A to strike defendant's answer due to their failure to produce deposition witnesses is denied. Defendant's cross motion to allow the production of witnesses a minimum of 30 days before trial or be precluded is granted. About a showing of willfulness, the appropriate remedy when a counsel has been unable after due diligence to locate its insured is to conditionally preclude defendants from introducing evidence on their behalf. And that was entered on December 2nd, 1992. And let's see, from there I went to the bankruptcy court and I found the order that Judge Hall signed renegotiating Scott Lord's stipulation from $12,000 to $14,000. And now look, that just got done And now with Scott Lord's default of not payment, it's going to have to be all done over again. The trustees got to go through all that again. Well, I'm going to object this time. Okay, I think Scott Lord should be locked up. This is enough. This is enough default. And I know that the trustee will go after the sheriff for Scott Lord to garnish wages, but I don't think Scott Lord is working for Tri-State anymore, because I just don't think there is any Tri-State anymore. I think Scott Lord is back in business for himself, or is managing Tri-State, if there is a Tri-State, against the stipulation that Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Burns signed with the Office of Consumer Affairs, that in no way would Scott Lord manage Tri-State inside or outside. And that was a stipulation they all signed. Well, let's see, after I get through the bankruptcy court and the court clerk and getting copies of all these things, it was 4:30 and I went across the street, Old Country Road, to the Office of Consumer Affairs, and I told them about there being no Tri-State down at 17 Center Street, and I reminded them that I had told them that last year, and they really didn't thoroughly investigate it, and I told them that it looks to me as though Scott Lord has started up a business again and is operating without a license. The chat with Glendora was on TV Friday night in Nassau County because the telephone was ringing. And here's your joke. Dorothy says, I knew it was going to be a good day. I went to the supermarket and I got a shopping cart and all of the wheels were going in the same direction. Now, this is Saturday, and I have used up all of the blank backs of the Scott Lord file. I have done what I'm supposed to do to save the trees. Instead of using new paper, I use up the blank backs. On Sunday before church, remember two things about Scott Lord this week. He defaulted on his bankruptcy payment, last payment, and I think he is running a business with no consumer affairs license. Something he was arrested for on or about 1988 and fined $300 and put on probation for 3 years. 12 hours this week were burned up on Scott Lord's law breaking. This mailing will have to be reduced 50% to save another mailing this weekend, costing another $30 because we just sent out one last week for $30. So we'll have to reduce all these papers 50% so that we can send out 32 pages instead of 16. Now, there is another thing, too. There's this thing about the judgment against Tri-State for not paying the unemployment, I guess it is, against the New York State Department of Labor has it against them. And the order to show cause, finally Consumer Affairs got this order to show cause, and it is on its way to me. I made out a freedom of application form, I made out a freedom of information form to get it, and it's apparently on its way to me. And it starts off with Scott Lord affidavit. Where is Jeffrey Burns? Where is Jan Stahl? This is Tri-State. Scott Lord is just an employee, the last we knew, of Tri-State. And where is Lillian Rosenthal, or Rosenblum, or Rosenberg? And where is Lillian R., the vice president, who should be making such an affidavit if Burns and Stahl are not going to make it? So this is another indication that a business is being run here by Scott Lord against the stipulation that Scott Lord wasn't to be a manager in any capacity inside or outside of Tri-State. When Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Burns were given their consumer affairs license back around 1990. And to make that motion again to the United States Attorney to conduct a criminal investigation of Jan Stahl, Jeffrey Burns, and Scott Lord. I made that motion before, and Judge Hall and the trustee just ignored it, and the United States Attorney ignored it, and it was soon after that, for that reason and many, many others, 64 others, that we sued, or I sued, Judge Hall and Judge Duperstein and all of those federal defendants. Going to end it with today's joke. The CEO said to his caddy, "Caddy, why do you keep looking at your watch?" And the caddy says, "This isn't a watch, sir, it's a compass." This is what happened on Glendora versus Scott Lord, Jeffrey Burns, Jan Stahl, and others on the week of October the 18th, 1993. Here's what happened on Glendora versus Scott Lord and Gannett et al. The week of October the 18th, 1993. I did an update on Broder for TV, what happened last week, and some parts of the Broder are seen in Long Island. The Gannett story is seen in Long Island. And those that are in the same program with another series that's going on out there. GCI closed at 50 1/8 Friday. And Clerk Jim does not know how long a federal judge has to make a decision. And Kalarji sent another dumb letter denying that the defendants were served. Now you remember Kalarji, right? He's the one who pulled off those things with Glendora versus Gannett, the libel suit, which is now before the appellate division. So we know Kalarji, and we know the kind of thing that he does. He's a lawyer in Park Avenue in Manhattan, and he lives in Rye. He's on the library board in in Rye. Well, he's trying to get out of it. It's typically Gannett, and is typically Gannett lawyer. Why don't those people make an honest living? There was 1 hour today on Broder, and we went to the United States District Court and we looked at the file, and the motion for default judgment was in the file. We looked at the docket. Everything is in the file as it should be. Then we went to Pace Law Library and looked up the rules of service, and the time on Broder today, folks, was 5 hours. Broder had an article in the newspaper today, and the doctor told Charlie that he wasn't getting enough exercise watching golf on TV. So now Charlie watches tennis. On October the 19th, 93, Tuesday, Glendora was in Nassau County for 10 hours chasing the bankrupt. She went to the appellate term and watched them for an hour. And Franklyn copied the Exhibit 3 and copied the affirmation in opposition to Gannett's so-called answer, that thing that came out of the stationery store. And this was all served on everybody and on Kalarji. And Bob said he was out golfing, and he said to his golf partner, when I hit a shot like that, he says, it makes me so disgusted with myself, I could go over into that pond, jump into it, and drown. And his partner says, no, you couldn't do that. You couldn't hold your head down long enough. On October the 20th, 1993, Wednesday, 4:15 p.m., the Broder file was put in order. We paginated the new stuff. We read the rules of service, and we worked on answering Kalarji's screwy letters. And there were calls in during a chat with Glendora on TV. That one's all about Broder. And, of course, they were Broder's accomplices. The time on Broder today is 1.5 hours. And what's the difference between a chain? And what's the difference between a train and a teacher? A train says, chew, chew, and a teacher says, don't chew. October the 21st, 1993, Thursday, there was another check on the clerk's file on the lawsuit in the United States District Court, and it checks out fine, and Glendora started her affirmation in opposition to Kalarji's pathetic attempt to escape. That will be enclosed, and she came home after editing and read the first 4 pages that had been typed and pasted up the inserts. Then she wrote some more up until bedtime on Kalarji, and bedtime was 8:50 p.m. October the 22nd, 1993, Friday, 5:50 a.m., Glendora resumed writing pages 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in answer to Kalarji. They are being typed now. The time today is 4 hours. Saturday, Glendora will finish her affirmation in opposition to Kalarji's pathetic letter. The case is over. The case is won. Gannett defaulted. The boat has sailed. They are on the dock. Write the check for $600,000. Dorothy said, I knew it was going to be a good day. When I went to the supermarket and got a cart, all of the wheels were pointing in the same direction. October the 22nd, 93, Saturday at 6:30 a.m., Glendora started Broder, the last page of the affirmation in opposition to Kalarji. Lying, stealing, and cheating. It is typed. Tomorrow we'll do the envelopes. Monday we'll have it notarized and served, and let them try to lie about that they didn't get that. You can't stoop much lower. This will all be reported on TV, and John says, how come the boy who was not good enough to be your daughter's husband is the grandfather of the smartest grandson in the whole world? October the 24th, 93 Sunday, 7 a.m. Started Broder, Glendora log file. Check to see if the blank backs of all Broder papers have been used to save the trees, and they have. You have to use the blanks. You can't take out new paper. You got to use the blank backs. I'll give you an example of that. See, these lawyers. I'm going to read you Kalaji's letter in a minute. But you see, all that blank paper, that should have been on both sides. And in addition to that, you have to pay, you and I have to pay for the real estate taxes to store all these blank pages. We made the master copies, Glendora, Broderick, the clerk, Galaji, and the time on Broder today is 2 hours, and for the week is 21 hours. And the CEO said to his caddy, "Caddy, how come you keep looking at your watch?" And the caddy says, "This isn't a watch, sir, it's a compass." And now I'm going to read you Kalaji's letter to Judge Broderick. Dated October the 13th, 1993. Received by us October the 17th, 1993. Judge Vincent L. Broderick, United States District Judge, United States District Courthouse, Southern District of New York, 101 East Post Road, White Plains. Re. Glendora versus Gannett Company, Incorporated, et al., 93 Civil, 5561, Vincent L. Broderick. Dear Judge Broderick, we represent all defendants in the above referenced matter and right to request a conference with the court. This is an action against a news organization and several of its employees for alleged antitrust violations. Plaintiff appears pro se. None of the defendants in this action has been properly served. The complaint was sent by certified mail to 3 of the defendants without the required acknowledgement of service required by Federal Rule Civil Procedure 4C, 12C, little 2. The remaining defendants were not served at all. Nevertheless, we answered on behalf of all defendants and intend to move to dismiss the complaint in its entirety. We have now received a document from Plaintiff Pro Se Glendora entitled Plaintiff's Affirmation in Vehement Opposition to Defendant's So-Called Answer, quote unquote, received by plaintiff 10 days late. This document does not appear on the docket sheet, is not a formal motion, and does not require a response. Of course it's not a formal motion, it's an affirmation. However, the affirmation does refer to a motion for default judgment allegedly served September the 8th, 1993, which we have never received and which is not listed on the court's docket. In the event that the court has any question as to the timeliness of defendant's answer, defendants state that in light of the deficiencies in service, no answer was required. Moreover, had plaintiff pro se properly served the complaint by mail with an acknowledgement of service, defendants would have had 20 days within which to return that acknowledgement, and then 20 days after such return to answer the complaint. See Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 4C, 2C2, Appendix of Forms, Form 18A. Thus, defendants would have had until August the 30th to return the acknowledgement of service and until September the 20th to answer the complaint. Defendants served their answer on September the 9th. Defendants now respectfully request a pre-motion conference with the court so that we may set up a briefing schedule for a motion to dismiss the complaint. Respectfully submitted, Robert M. Kalaji. Copy to Glendora Pro Se. It is a sad letter. Okay, I'm going to read you what's going out tomorrow on that. And how can he say that they didn't receive it when we have 7? We have 7, they aren't here, they're in another office, green cards stating that all of them were received. It's really embarrassing to read a piece like that. Okay, United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Glendora, Plaintiff versus Gannett Company Incorporated, Gannett Suburban Newspapers, John Curley, Gary Watson, Douglas McCorkindale, Gary Sherlock, Kenneth Paulson, defendants. Case number 93, Civ 5561, Plaintiff's Affirmation in Opposition to Defendants, letter of October the 13th, 93 to Judge Broderick. Judge Vincent Broderick. Paragraph 1, plaintiff rejoices at defendant's cry of defective service. This cry shows immediately that defendants have no defense. 2, the first thing defendants with no defense do is to try to get out of the action on a technicality. This letter by Attorney Kalaji does not deal with the issue of antitrust violation on its merits. Plaintiff has experienced attorney Kalaji sidestepping before. He never deals with the issue. He cannot fight the case on merit because defendants have no defense. Trying to get out of this action on a cry of, quote, improper service, unquote, merely delays the case and burns up the court's time. First, there is nothing wrong with the service. Return receipt requested shows defendants were served by certified mail. Glendora followed Rule 4 process, and here's the Rule 4 process. The summons issuance, upon the filing of the complaint, the clerk shall forthwith issue a summons and deliver the summons to the plaintiff or the plaintiff's attorney, who shall be responsible for prompt service of the summons and a copy of the complaint, and we did all that. Upon request of the plaintiff, separate or additional summons shall issue against any defendants. The same form. The summons shall be signed by the clerk, and it was. Be under the seal of the court, and it is. Contain the name of the court and the names of the parties. Be directed to the defendant. State the name and address of the plaintiff's attorney, if any, otherwise the plaintiff's address. And the time, and it did. And the time within which these rules require the defendant to appear and defend, and it did, 20 days. And shall modify him that in case, and shall notify him that in case of the failure to do so, judgment by default will be rendered against him for the relief demanded in the complaint. In the federals, it says it will be a default judgment. In the state, it says it may be. When under Rule 4E, service is made pursuant to a statute or rule of court of a state, the summons or notice or other in lieu of summons shall correspond as nearly as may be so. That required the statute of the rule. We did that exactly. And then I go on to tell them how you do this, what the United States rules of civil procedure say about a certified letter. And summons and complaint may be served upon a defendant of any class referred to in paragraph 103 of subdivision D of the rule. And it may be served pursuant to the law of the state in which the district court is held. That would be New York State, Westchester County. By mailing a copy of the summons and of the complaint by first-class mail. That's exactly how we did it. Postage prepaid to the person to be served. That's exactly how we did it. Only we did it even better with certified mail, return receipt requested. And down here, I tell them about certified mail. Can you see that? And over here, I tell them about certified mail. Glendora had this done also. All defendants were served, and the plaintiff has the return receipts to prove this. Imagine his saying only 3 defendants were served. The plaintiff also has the affidavit of service. See page 4. There it is, folks. That's the affidavit of service. This infantile whimpering about service from a grown-up lawyer is embarrassing, and Glendora will say so on TV. Quote, nevertheless, we answered on behalf of all defendants, unquote. I'm quoting Kalaji. Is a waiver of these fabricated, defective service objections. Quote, we answered, unquote, was not timely, as plaintiff's motion of September the 9th, 1993 for default judgment states. They answered the very day their answer was served, and of course I didn't get it until several days later, but the very day that I was making my motion for default judgment. And further, Glendora saw that the following was done according to Rule 4. The person serving the process shall make proof of service thereof to the court promptly and in any event within the time during which the person served must respond to the process. That's no problem. The affidavit of service was in the hands of the court the next day after it was served. Service of any such demand or of any petition filed under Section 5 of this Act by certified mail, by registered or certified mail, and we did that. It is transparently clear what is happening, Glendora tells Judge Broderick. Gannett goofed. They let the summons with notice and complaint go. Then suddenly one day they realized what they had done. Oops. Hastily they got out that stationery store answer, the one I read you, knowing full well said answer was way too late. Glendora had already made her motion for default judgment. Obviously, defendants let the matter sit, and now they rush around trying to cover up and to lie their way around it. Glendora knows how they operate. She has met their deceit and attempts at deception in several courts. 4 to be exact. They always use the same ploys. And the dereliction you see here with neglecting to answer the summons with notice and complaint is a repeated behavior pattern with them. It is their lifestyle. That's Gannett's lifestyle. The management is so wrapped up in their greed, their monopolizing, and their golden parachutes that they let everything else go, like a summons with notice and complaint that has to be answered, quote, within 20 days, unquote. Next, they use the shareholders' money to hire lawyers to lie their way out of it. They've done this for years. It's all been reported on TV and you heard it. These lawyers get paid precious shareholders' money to find loopholes and to break the law. And Glendora followed Judge Broderick's rules about default judgment. Judge Broderick has his own set of rules, and you have to follow them. And those are his one page of his rules on default judgment. Glendora will amend her motion for default judgment for 9% interest by New York State CPLR starting September 4th, 1993, the day defendants defaulted. All of this will be read on TV. The plaintiff's motion for default judgment is in the computer, and it is in the clerk's office, and it always has been since the day it was filed. Glendora lives only 3 blocks from Judge Broderick's courthouse. Gannett is only 3 miles away on Westchester Avenue in Harrison. And Kalaji lives only 8 miles away in Rye. They should be more in touch and know what is going on. Kalaji is wrong that Glendora's affirmation and vehement opposition to defendant's so-called answer received by plaintiff 10 days late is not in the docket. It is. We saw it there in the clerk's office October 18th, 93, Monday. We saw it there in the clerk's office twice on October the 21st, 1993. It is so sniveling to try to get out of a $600,000 case on a thread that the motion for default judgment was not received. You cannot believe that. That's Park Avenue. This is how low Gannett stoops. Gannett stoops this low over and over again, and it will go on TV. The court received the motion for default judgment. Glendora had it served on every defendant. John H. Clark in the Justice Department, Antitrust Division down in Manhattan, received a copy of it and wrote Glendora saying so. Kalaji is pathetic trying to get away with this prefabrication. And remember, defendants, it can all be served over again. Here is the affidavit of service for the motion for default judgment. The plaintiff is not credulous that defendants did not receive her motion for default judgment. Said motion was not received by Attorney Kalaji because he had not appeared on September 8th. It's September 8th when I made my motion for default judgment, since they hadn't answered. How did I know that they had an attorney? And how did I know if they had an attorney who it was? So Kalaji had not appeared. Hence, Kalaji didn't get any notice of the default judgment. Gannett apparently did not wake up and contact Kalaji until after they let the summons with notice and complaint expire, until after they received the motion for default judgment, at which time defendants probably said, oops, and Kalaji says, I'll try this letter to Judge Broderick for a conference and see if it works. In all other legal papers Kalaji has sent Glendora on another case in 1992, he used bare-bones first-class mail and depended on Glendora's honesty to receive his papers. Glendora does not play his prevarication games about service. If I get a paper, I acknowledge it. Okay, I don't go say, I didn't get it. Glendora's case is won. Defendants defaulted, and that is all there is to it. The sum has to be paid. The law has to be kept. Defendants missed the boat. We have embarked. Plaintiff opposes a conference. The lawsuit is won by the plaintiff. The law is the law. Gannett ought to know the law. Gannett, a news organization, quote unquote, or not. They have dance and they have to pay the fiddler. Defendants are too late to request a conference, just as they were too late with their stationery store answer, too late with their yet unopposed motion for default judgment. What I'm saying there is that they have never opposed Glendora's motion for default judgment. They've never opposed it. So it's open and shut. Glendora emphasized again that defendants have never opposed her motion for default judgment. This case is won and over, and the law says so. It's a matter of law. Defendants had 20 days to answer. They were asleep. They missed. It is over. If defendants had been alert and on the job instead of preoccupied with their greed, monopolizing, and golden parachutes, defendants would have answered within 20 days, as the summons stated, and with a motion to dismiss instead of their poor old stationery store answer. That's what they should have done. You know, that's what their answer should have been, a motion to dismiss. In the event the court has any question as to the timeliness of defendant's answer, Kalaji says, this is an outrageous thing to say. The answer was not timely by any stretch of the most dishonest imagination. The answer was due September 4th and there was no answer. How can anybody try to cover this up? To say no answer was required is absurd. The law is the law. Since when are Gannett defendants and lawyer attorney above the law? The complaint was properly served, see Rule 4 as reproduced on pages 1, 2, and 3. And there was an acknowledgement of service. See the docket and see the clerk's file. Defendants had their 20 days and squandered it. Now they are trying to lie, steal, and cheat. This is an old Gannett lifestyle. Gannett, when caught doing wrong, never faces it. You remember that? Never atones, never makes good, and never reforms. Gannett goes on with its greed, law-breaking, monopolizing, and golden parachutes, to say nothing of its rip-off prices, bad news coverage, and robbery of public and shareholders. All of lawyer Galaji's calculations of 20 days are to no avail. Gannett had 20 days to answer just like everybody else. They failed, they defaulted, and they took grotesque attempts to try to cover it up. Glendora's will say so on TV. Gannett's time to make a motion to dismiss was up the first time, September the 4th, that was the summons, and was up the second time, September 20, that was the return date of the motion for default judgment. No lying, stealing, or cheating, and no Park Avenue can cover up, can gloss over this one. If you're going to acknowledge the summons, and you remember how he said, you know, he tried to get out of it by saying it should have been acknowledged, and then he got another 20 days? No way. If you are going to acknowledge the summons with notice and complaint, acknowledge it with an answer, and preferably with an answer that is a motion to dismiss and save the court all this time. Expedite. And acknowledge it on time. That is how it is done. There is more to say, but Judge Broderick has a 10-page limit. Smart. Wherefore, Plaintiff Glendora states that paragraphs 1 to 5 of her motion of September 8, 1993, one day before defendant's so-called answer was served, state of cause of action, and as a matter of law, plaintiff should be granted her motion for default judgment of $600,000 for defendant's failure to answer the summons and complaint filed August the 9th, 1993, in this antitrust matter, or for summary judgment, and for the costs of this action, and for such other and further relief as this court may deem just and proper. Dated White Plains, New York, October the 25th, 1993. Yours truly, Glendora, Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 10583, 914-949-9495. Subscribed and sworn to before me this date, this 25th day of October, 1993. And that will have to be notarized tomorrow. And here is the affidavit of service. And that's what happened with Glendora versus Broder, Gannett, on the week of October the 18th, 1993. Bye now, and keep your courage flaming. What happened on Glendora versus the DHCR on the week of October the 18th, 1993? Nothing. Nothing happened. So far as I know, Judge Matthew Coppola has not signed the order that he was given to sign on August the 23rd. He's got to sign that order. It's a bad decision, and it has to be appealed, and it can't be appealed until he signs it, naturally, and until I'm given a written notice of entry. Okay, and then on the Glendora versus Stephen Cohen and the William Street DHCR, nothing's happened on that, but then he has until November 15th to do that, and I don't know whether they have my self-addressed stamped envelope or not. And that's Glendora versus the DHCR. We have a fan down in Manhattan who calls us. He likes the programs about the DHCR. So, I ought to at least tell you a joke. Yeah, John says that he's got a disease that's so rare They haven't even named a telethon after it yet. You take care. Well, what happened the week of October the 18th, 1993? Glendora plaintiff appellant against Lydia Roselli Gallicano. Well, this is the appellant's brief. That would be myself. And I sent it to the clerks down in the appellate division. And it came back, and look what they said. Again, a professional-looking job. So this brief is to appeal the bad decision of Justice Dennis Donovan of the Supreme Court, County of Westchester. I think you know now how a brief is set up. They have these rules, and you have to follow them strictly. And that's the title page. And this is a statement pursuant to 55, CPLR 5531. It's just a list of, when the summons was served, and when what the answer was, and what the motions were, and what the cross motions were. And then the next thing you have to put in is your table of contents, and then you see that list of things. Those are your points. Those are your questions. I won't bother to read them to you, because when I read you my points, they will come out of that. And then you have to have a preliminary statement, and then you have to have the questions involved, which is really nothing more than putting the points in question form. And then you have to have a statement of facts. That's the history of the case. And then you have to have your argument and all your points. So here's my argument. Argument point 1. Son-in-law lawyer submitted motion to dismiss with no request for judicial intervention, and the judge let it go. A lawyer should know the working of his county's Supreme Court. Anyone knows you don't have the court until you buy an RJI. That motion Ornberger had submitted as an answer was a nullity. You don't move the court unless you have an RJI, a request for judicial intervention. It had no fuel nor power to ignite the part and put it in gear and start the wheels turning. Point 2. So the motion just lay in the calendar clerk's bin as the answer day came and went, as the defendant did not answer timely. And the judge let this go by. The calendar clerk, Gail Gaynor, called Ornberger and told him he had to pay an RJI for $75 in order for the motion to have legs and feet. But of course, Ornberger and mother-in-law never came up with the money. Yet Judge Donovan overlooked all this and treated the RJI less motion as a timely answer. Glendora takes exception to this ruling. A lawyer should not do what Ornberger did. A judge should not do what Judge Donovan did. Judge Donovan should have ignored this paper. Point 3. Son-in-law lawyer had the wrong defendants in the caption, and the judge let that go by. This lawyer, Ornberger, on his motion to dismiss, had the wrong defendants. Glendora sued one and only one person, Lydia Roselli, Gallicano. Glendora did not sue two defendants, Lydia and Larry Gallicano. Larry Gallicano does not own any part of 40 Longview Avenue. Lydia Gallicano is the sole owner. It seems their son-in-law should know that much. Ornberger kept saying in his motion, defendants. There is only one defendant. This is sloppy work and is a defect. Judge Donovan did sloppy decision work, a sloppy lawyer and a sloppy judge. Point 4, there is always a right to sue for punitive damages. Glendora was damaged. Damages have never been paid. Glendora has a right to punitive damages. Point 5, it is not just for this judge in the lower court to let a landlord go unpunished for making a tenant pay the landlord's Con Ed charges. Don't you think a judge should step in and stop that? Greedy landlords should be brought to justice. Judges and courts should protect society from the likes of Lydia Gallicano. She did wrong. She should be punished. Punitive damages should be awarded. Point 6, judge's decision contradicts itself. Judge's third paragraph states, quote, at common law, there is no separate cognizable cause of action for punitive damages, unquote. Judge's sixth paragraph states, even assuming a right to punitive damages. Which way is it? Now, which way is this judge deciding? He is like that character Janus in Roman mythology with two faces, one looking to the left and one looking to the right. Please, in plain Anglo-Saxon terms, what is this judge saying? Point 7. Judge is wrong to grant motion on grounds of 3211A4 when the White Plains judge, that would be Judge Holden, ignored Glendora's affirmative defense to dismiss Gallicano action on the grounds of the same 3211-4A. Judge Donovan acts as though he entirely missed this discrepancy. Glendora's first defense to Judge Holden was that the matters of the $200 September 1992 rent and the $1,050 October 1992 rent Glendora withheld were before Judge Nicolai in the Westchester Supreme Court, being appealed. Glendora made this first affirmative defense before Judge Holden on the grounds of 3211-8-4. Hi, Katie. I'm glad to see you, Katie. You've been out all day. Judge Holden ignored this defense entirely. He should have dismissed then and there the action Gallicano brought against Glendora. But Judge Donovan uses the same rule, 3211-A4, to dismiss Glendora's case against Lydia Gallicano. It makes the court look bad, very bad. Point 8. Judge Donovan is wrong to say the plaintiff received threefold when Judge Holden wiped it out by awarding the son-in-law lawyer $500 attorney's fees, leaving Glendora $300 to pay. Judge Holden awarded Glendora $240 Con Ed fees, nothing for illegal rent charging. 40 Longview Avenue was a one-family. Gallicano rented illegally as a two-family. Nothing for no certificate of occupancy. 50 of the 52 weeks Glendora lived there. Then awarded Gallicano $500 attorney's fees for a son-in-law and $40 disbursements. This left Glendora $540 minus $240 equal $300 to pay, which Glendora appealed. Glendora paid $315 for the stenographer's minutes, such is the impenetrable maze, the courts, snare, we who look for justice. So this is hardly threefold. It is maybe negatively threefold, below zero or minus. Point 9. Seeking damages in Supreme Court is a whole lot different from seeking damages in White Plains City Court. Glendora's case for punitive damages is indisputably a case for Supreme Court, not a case for White Plains City Court. Remember, Glendora first sued Gallicano et al. In Westchester Supreme Court before Judge Nicolai. Then Gallicano sued Glendora in White Plains City Court. Glendora's case for punitive damages for a landlord's lying, stealing, and cheating is a Supreme Court matter. It doesn't fit in City Court. Judge Donovan, like so many judges, is just passing the buck. They'll get rid of a case any way they can, folks, believe me. Point 10, Judge Donovan is wrong in saying Glendora did not make it pellucidly clear she appealed Judge Holden's decision in every part thereof. Judge Donovan is wrong in saying Glendora did not make it pellucidly clear she appealed Judge Holden's decision in every part thereof. Glendora's notice of appeal of March 8, 1993 of Judge Holden's bad decision states clearly, quote, and this appeal is taken from every part thereof, unquote. It should have been unequivocal to Judge Donovan that Glendora appealed Judge Holden's decision in each and every point. Point 11. Judge Donovan should have been ruled that Gallicano was guilty of collateral estoppel by bringing to the White Plains City Court the same action that was pending in the Westchester Supreme Court. Judge Donovan should have seen that Gallicano was guilty of collateral estoppel by bringing to the White Plains City Court the same action that was pending in the Westchester Supreme Court. Judge Nicolai had ruled on the very two matters, the September 1992 $200 rent withheld and the October 1992 $1,050 rent. And Glendora was appealing this. It was as wrong for Gallicano and son-in-law Ornberger to bring this action in White Plains City Court when the same action was in Westchester Supreme Court as it was for Ornberger to try to move this court to dismiss the punitive Con Ed complaint when Ornberger bought no RJI, request for judicial intervention. Point 12. Similarly, it is Gallicano, not Glendora, who is guilty of multitudinous and repetitious actions being brought, as is demonstrated here. Similarly, it is Gallicano, not Glendora, who is guilty of multitudinous and repetitious actions being brought, as is demonstrated here. Judge Donovan got things upside down. One would have to be standing on his head to make a decision like this. In addition to bringing the same action to White Plains City Court as was in Westchester Supreme Court, Gallicano brought another action against Glendora and White Plains City Court, a small claims action for allegedly throwing out a piece of alleged marble that allegedly belonged to Lydia Gallicano. Alleged marble belonged to Lydia's sisters. Alleged marble belonged to Lydia's sister. Lydia's husband told Glendora. The complaint was dismissed by Judge Freya, White Plains' first woman judge. First woman judge they've ever had in White Plains City Court. Point 13. The identity of parties by Judge Donovan is wrong. In White Plains, the court, Glendora was the defendant and Gallicano was the plaintiff, whereas in the Nikolai Supreme Court, Glendora was the plaintiff and Gallicano was the defendant. Now, how much more different can the parties get when Glendora is a plaintiff in the first case and the defendant in the second case, and Gallicano is the defendant in the first one and the plaintiff in the second case? This is two different actions, two separate actions, and it is lazy to shuffle the case. Glendora paid $245 for to get into Supreme Court. To shuffle this case into the White Plains City Court all around, Judge Donovan's decision is bad. Point 14. Judge Donovan is wrong in condoning the lying, stealing, and cheating of a landlord. When a landlord lies, steals, and cheats, and the tenant is brave enough to stand up for honesty and to spend her money fighting for what is right, and the time, tenant should get the support of the court. Courts are not supposed to condone lying, stealing, and cheating. Courts are supposed to mete out justice. And here's the conclusion. This case was not decided on its merits. This court is pro-landlord and anti-pro se. Stand up for what is right and reverse this decision. Give Glendora something good to say on TV about these courts. So far, everything said on TV has been bad. Plaintiff pleads that the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, reverse Judge Dennis Donovan's decision and grant plaintiff $10,000 punitive damages. Greedy landlords should not rip off innocent, trusting tenants and get away with it. Lydia Gallicano should be an example to other lying, stealing, and cheating landlords and should be punished in the amount of $10,000. Dated White Plains, New York, October 14, 1993. Glendora, Box 532, Scarsdale, New York, 914-949-9495. And that is a very brief brief. Isn't that good? I'll tell you how many pages it is. 19. See, that's good. Now then, that's what happened on Glendora versus Lydia Gallicano et al. On the week of October the 18th, 1993. And I got to find you a joke somewhere. Marilyn says that she doesn't eat health food. Don't get on the microphone. That she doesn't eat health food because she needs all of the preservatives she can get. Oh, that's a nice song, Kate. Oh, very nice song. Yes. Don't snag the jacket, please. This is Katie Cat. Katie Cat is 4 years old. She has beautiful green eyes. You know what all that body... You know what all that body language is? What's she telling me? Feed me. I'm hungry. Feed me. Feed me. I'm hungry. Say bye-bye to the people. No, turn around this way. The peoples might feed you. Say bye-bye to them. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Number 30 mailing, Glendora versus Walsh, Alpuche, and Larkin, 21 Greenridge Avenue. What happened October 18th, 93 week. Monday, total forward of law breaking by Walsh, Alpuche, and Larkin is 361 law breakings of the law. There were about 12 of them last week. It is too bad. They could have had a perfect week. Add 2 more hours work on Walsh Sunday, 4:38 p.m. A man comes to see Daniel Walsh and parks his wheels on the lawn. That is smart. James Walsh and Patrick and the blonde boy, not the curly-headed one, were playing football on the lawn again. Glendora left a message on John Porzio's recorder about it. This was just after Patrick's father told his son that Patrick was wearing his patience to the end. The three left 3 bicycles in the front yard by the sidewalk. Glendora videotaped this on 2Y. Number 363, Nella Alpuche saw that Glendora was videotaping her program in the living room and blasted the horn of her Pontiac 6 times. You know, when I started out in TV, everything had to be done in a studio. There's no such thing as a remote because the cameras were too big. You know, the cameras were this big, even a black and white camera. So everything had to be done in a studio. So they sent me out to buy furniture, a living room set, to come back to the studio and make it look like a living room. And nowadays, because the cameras are this small, you can sit in your living room and do it, and you don't have to have a set. Franklyn heard the blasting of the horn, and the Wall lawsuit is up to page 22, and Glendora left a message on Mr. Porzio's recorder that she lost another $1 in the washing machine. Chief Bradley's secretary does not know who the new detective is. Sergeant Fitzsimmons does not know. Glendora worked on distribution plan of videotapes of the cable TV companies in Manhattan and Nassau, and on TCI in Westchester, and Cablevision in Harrison and Port Chester. She rehearsed the editing again. This time it just took a half an hour. The time on Wall so far today is 3.5 hours at 2:30 p.m. 2:30 p.m. work on the 2nd week of June torts Wall lawsuit. 2:45 p.m. finish, 2 of us, 2.25 hours. Lawsuit is up to tortious acts 208. 26 pages the lawsuit is already. October the 19th, 93, Tuesday, Glendora was in Nassau County for 10 hours, chasing down the bankrupt who breaks as many laws as the Walsh people, and Alpuche and Larkin. Franklyn worked hard on the lawsuit for listing the offenses of the 3rd week of June. Number 14, what happened? He worked 3 hours. When Glendora got back, she helped him finish it. Glendora brought $10 worth of candy for trick-or-treat for the good kids in the neighborhood. The doctor told Charlie he was not getting enough exercise watching golf on TV, so Charlie started watching tennis. October the 20th, 1993, Wednesday, Glendora set up the dates to cablecast Glendora versus Walsh, Alpuche and Larkin on the first cable TV system. The program starts the middle of November, 1993. This means the lawsuit will have to be filed by the 1st week of November. And November is when the What Happened logs predicted the programs would be on about Wall. 7:20 a.m., Nella Alpuche blew her Pontiac horn under our bedroom window. That's number 364. 6:22 p.m. Tuesday, the 2D people, the people who live in 2D, blasted their car horn twice under our southeast window, number 365. 9:39 a.m., Chief Bradley's secretary does not know who Glendora's new detective is. Quote, you'll probably be hearing shortly from the department, unquote. October the 21st, 1993, Thursday, 4:30 a.m., the What Happened log is up to date. 5 a.m., start the 4th week of June, tortious acts for the lawsuit, now up to 243 counts of law breaking by the Wall. It is 6:24 a.m., the lead in to the 3rd week of June has been typed. The proofreading of What Happened, number 15, is being done. This started at 6:10 a.m. Next is to transcribe the obscene and abusive language of Nella Alpuche of June the 23rd, 1993, from audio tape onto paper, onto the lawsuit. We got this done at 7:30 a.m. We had to put down the windows because Nella was outside moving her car around the driveway right outside our windows. The time so far on Wall is 4 3/4 hours. Straighten out the audio tape labeling 491 to 494. 8 a.m. Glendora will start today's work on Walsh, Alpuche, and Larkin. All that has been done so far was yesterday's. Do the lead into the tortious acts of the first week of July, 8:33 a.m., proofread number 16, what happened, log for lawsuit. 8:43 a.m., correct the typos, 9 o'clock done, put it away, total time is 6.5 hours today so far. Bob said to his golf partner, when I make a shot like that, I am so disgusted I could go over there and jump into that pond and drown myself. His partner says, not you. You couldn't hold your head down long enough for that. October the 22nd, 1993, Friday, 1:55 p.m., Henry Hudson Parkway, on our way to Manhattan to edit Walsh, Alpuche, Larkin, chapters 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Well, yesterday, chapter 4 was finished, laying down, cleaned up with music and graphics and the archive made. Chapter 5, Nella, Kevin, and James, was laid down, cleaned up, but no archive. The time was 4 hours. This morning, 1 hour to get Walsh, Alpuche, Larkin, 1, 2, 3, 4, ready to hand into the cable company to start telecasting in mid-November. That took 5 hours. This morning, 3 hours to screen, 3I, 3J, and 3K to edit, and that's made it the total up to 8 hours. 1 p.m. ready to leave, 1:20 p.m. Franklyn did driving, 2:11 p.m. we were in Manhattan at the TV studio, and it's near CBS. 7:09 a.m. Kevin Larkin was making undue noise and disturbance in the front hall outside of our door. Glendora saw his heels disappear up the stairs and heard him lie to James Walsh that Glendora was down there with her camera. Kevin did not even see Glendora, let alone see a camera. I had no camera. 5 minutes later, Kevin came down the stairs with James. Kevin was carrying an empty plastic bottle, and he was scraping it along the banister posts. Scraping it along the banister posts, making a loud noise. Glendora went to see it. Kevin and James hastened out the door. Glendora went out to see what made the noise. Roberta called, Jamie, what time will you be back? And Jamie said 3:30, and Roberta said to Glendora, F blank blank K, leave the kids alone. They aren't bothering you. She was wrong. They are just going to school, she said. Then Roberta asked James again, did you say 3:30? And James said, in a most disrespectful, irritated, and brat tone, yes! Apparently the kids were in a hurry to get away and to school, no less. Glendora called the Harrison police, but Andrew Larkin was not in. She asked Sergeant Hassett to give a message to Andrew Larkin that his son Kevin had made an undue disturbance outside Glendora's front door and that this was harassment of intent to annoy and alarm with no legitimate purpose. Sergeant Hassett said he would give Andrew the message. Then Glendora called John Porzio and left a message on his answering machine as to what had just happened. And the time was 7:13 a.m. when Glendora finished with his disturbance. Here again is Kevin Larkin violating the White Plains Noise Ordinance, which says yelling, shouting, hooting, whistling, or singing at any time, in any place, so as to disturb or annoy a person's quiet, comfort, repose, peace, or health in any dwelling or in any residence. That was the word. In any dwelling or in any residence. And that's the law that he has broken repeatedly. At 2:40 p.m., the technician set up the wiring from 8 millimeter to 3/4 inch. At 2:50 p.m., we started making a dub from 3/4 inch to VHS archives of Walsh, Alpuche, Larkin, Chapter 5. At 2:50 p.m., another technician typed in 5 pages of character generation. That's the graphics. At 2:50 p.m., we began to lay down Glendora versus Walsh, Alpuche, Larkin, Chapter 6. A lot of it was conversations with Sergeant Fitzsimmons, White Plains Police Detective. A lot of it was horn-blowing violations, mostly by Nella Alpuche and her sister. We finished the 8 millimeter videotape 3I. We were able to do the graphics at the same time we laid down the footage, video, and audio, therefore there was no cleanup. By 3:45 p.m. we started the dub in another room of Chapter 6, 3/4 inch to VHS. These formats drive you bananas. You have 8 millimeter, you have VHS, you have 3/4 inch, you have 1 inch. Around 4 p.m. we laid down Chapter 7, 8 millimeter to 3/4, cleaned it up, and at 5 p.m. we made the VHS. Chapter 8 is mostly about Diana Williams of WABC TV Eyewitness News and about the Neanderthal behavior of James and Roberta Walsh and Nella Alpuche on that day of October the 5th, 1993, Tuesday, and of Daniel Walsh. We started the archives at 5 p.m. We had to send out for another 3/4-inch videotape, 60 minutes, and it cost $20. Chalk that up to the wall. Walsh, Alpuche, Larkin, law-breaking. Then we had to transfer 3/4-inch to 3/4-inch Chapter 7 from work tape to telecast tape down a generation. We paid them $100 for 2.5 hours editing time. At 6:30 p.m. we loaded and got stuck in a traffic jam on the we stopped at the A&P. There was a bad accident. When Glendora points out that the sovereignty issue is archaic, A delay. 10:30 p.m. we were home. On the way home, Glendora listened to the audio tape. Evidence for a small claims action of a merchant who made a contract to advertise on TV with Glendora TV ads and WPGB, and then he breached it. We were home at 8 p.m., unloaded the Lincoln, brought in poor lonesome Ginny, fed her, and watched primetime TV for a half an hour. Glendora should have seen in the office taking care of a negotiation with a Fortune 500 company for $3,500 to put her jokes on the NBC television network, but to chalk the loss up to the wall law-breaking. Insert: while waiting for the Chapter 7 to be edited, Franklyn proofread the What Happened of number 17 for the Wall lawsuit, pages 49 to 56. The time on Wall today is 8 hours, plus 7.5 hours is equal to 22.5 hours. Dorothy said she knew she was going to have a good day when she went to the supermarket and got a cart, and all of the wheels were going in the same direction. October 23rd, 1993, Saturday, 1 a.m., Glendora got up and resumed the wall work. The alpuche van woke her up at 12:45 a.m. What happened log was up to date. 1:52 p.m., correct typos, number 17, what happened for the lawsuit. 2:22 a.m., typed the lead into number 17 on page 48 lawsuit. 3 a.m., done. Friday work on the lawsuit. Now start today's, the lead in, number 18. It goes on page 56 of the lawsuit. We started writing this lawsuit on October the 4th. We copied number 18, 3:23 a.m., proofread it. 8 a.m., corrected the typos. 3:56 a.m., cut the two sides and pasted it up. 4:20 a.m., done. Until 3/4 hours, Pauline says, now I know why they call them grandchildren. It's grand to see them come and it's grand to see them leave. 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., Glendora Scream Time logged the editing of Wall chapters 8, 9, 10 off of videotapes 3K, 2Z, and 3B. They cover the WABC TV ruckus with Walsh and alpuche before Diana Williams out on the tree belt and the Channel 7 van, camera, and microphone on October the 5th. The noise of alpuche, larkin, and Walsh infants, as the law calls them, and all of the outsiders they brought onto the property. If this editing of these 3 videotapes gets done Thursday, that will be just about all the editing that has to be done for now. The other tapes will be done at 1 per week, since they consist only of reading the What Happened logs, such as you see now. 6 p.m., Candy alpuche visitor came on the property and blew her horn 6 times under Glendora's east bedroom window. At 1:40 p.m., the man in 2D blasted his horn twice for no legitimate purpose, like preventing a car accident. He made Mr. Young very angry. Glendora sat out in the sunshine in the garden. Glendora returned all the plants to the garden. That was a false alarm weather report she got, 20 degrees 2 weeks ago. The plants like it better outdoors. 2:24 p.m., Mr. Alpuche blasted his horn unnecessarily loudly as Franklyn was out of sight cleaning out the back seat of the Lincoln. A tap would have been sufficient, and Glendora would have politely waited until Franklyn saw the van. Daniel Walsh called loudly in the hall outside of Glendora's door, Roberta, Roberta, I'm not going to wait out here all day. This was at 9:40 p.m. Then he went up the stairs and uttered uncouth words. They came down and went off in another person's car. Just before that, James Walsh went down the stairs as noisily as he could. CEO, why do you keep looking at your watch, Caddy? Caddy, this isn't a watch, sir. It's a compass. October the 24th, 1993, Sunday, before church. The dryer was working this morning after a little coaxing. 9:10 a.m., Glendora did the Wall lawsuit, number 19. Then she did the log for today. Lawsuit is up to page 62. 62, I'll show it to you in a second. 320 tortious acts. The log will close now for the week at noon. Left to do are the envelopes, copying, fold stuff, seal, serve, practice, editing, all TV shows, Chapter 7, 8, and 9, videotape update, which are being done right now. What happened this week, number 30, the Wall lawsuit is done up through July, is equals 7 hours for today on Walsh, alpuche, and larkin, 46 hours for the week. And Paul says he has a disease that is so rare, they haven't even named a telethon after it yet. The lawsuit. Here is the lawsuit. So let's see, October 5th to October 18th, 13 days. That's the summons with notice, and this is the complaint. And here is where we are. We're on page 63. And that was the what happened log, and listed the torts of the fourth week in July. I'll give you the number of torts. There were 35 intentional, willful, wanton, and malicious acts, ballooning the total to 358. And that's what happened on Glendora versus Walsh, Alpuche, and Larkin at 21 Greenridge Avenue in White Plains, New York, on the week of October the 18th, 1993. And keep your courage flaming. On Glendora versus Philip Amicone, the building commissioner, White Plains Building Department, and Mayor Alfred Del Vecchio of White Plains, and the White Plains Building Department itself. On this appeal, this is appeal of Judge Garayan's bad decision. And the record, this is the record of appeal. Let's see, how do I show it to you? It's 94 pages. It has been sent down to the appellate division in Brooklyn for the clerks to check over and see if it's all right. It doesn't have to be served. It perfected this appeal until December sometime, around Christmas. And also the brief has been started. The first 3 sheets of the brief have been done. On Glendora versus CBS Incorporated, Senior Vice President of Network Sales, Beth Matthew Marlowe, Marty Daly, and Matt Stockwell. The big news on that the week of October 1993, an appeal. The bad decision goes out is being appealed. And it costs $50. What happened with the tire and the negligence of the planes through Galveston, through Akasa, the landscaper, who left the before us in the driveway, that punctured the tire up to Bruin and Bruce Insurance in Glens Falls. What happened the week of October 18, 1993? The check came. Can you see it okay? This is the check for $140. End.
PM. Jim, Cahagan on October the 22nd, 3rd, 1993, Saturday. This is the freak in 2D. He just blew his horn twice under my bedroom window. And I have PM, we're doing 27A calls.
Detective Sheila.
Good afternoon. Do you know what detective has been assigned to Glendora?
I have no idea.
You don't have a book or anything?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. That's 5:04 p.m. October 4/23/1993 Saturday. Well, Dean Daniels, hi there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes? We don't know. Is Sergeant Fitzsimmons there?
Not right now, but she should be right back.
Does she know? Okay, would you ask her to call me, which of course she won't do.
Okay, I'll try.
All right, my number's 949-9495.
949.
Uh-huh.
4.
I'm sorry, 949-9495.
Yeah. 9495. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Holly, here's so much talking going on.
I know it.
Okay.
And so I'll give you a joke.
Yeah?
A joke, yeah. John says he has a disease so rare they haven't even named a telethon after it. Did you get it okay?
No.
He has a disease
Yeah.
so rare
Yeah.
they haven't named a telethon.
Oh, a telephone?
Okay, Louise. You too. Bye. Okay, we have to feed the baby. Today is 8:05 a.m. They don't know who the detective is yet. It's 8:04 a.m. the White Plains Police. October.
Moving on here, here's another discovery dispute that came up this morning. Going through that papers, Glendora wants to see what is in the public file on must carry, not just a copy of the file dividers. Instead of sending me the contents of the file, look what he sent me. A copy of the file dividers. Boy, nothing so crooked as a lawyer, or a TCI lawyer. Now, I want to see the file, not a copy of the file dividers. The same applies to political cable casting. The same is true of leased access, sponsored programs, sponsorship identification, and political advertising. The public file does not contain the information that it should. Hence, the information requested by Glendora will have to come from other files. Sending the photocopies of the divider headings is fugitivism in the extreme. Yours in truth, Glendora. Okay, those were 3 discovery disputes that were submitted to the district court this morning. Judges Fox and Rakoff, and a copy is has been sent to. Now, whose card is that, folks? Oh, yeah. That's a man named Bob who's in Ardsley who sees Glendora on TV. And his name is Manfredi. And the name of his company is Tri-State Network Corporation. And Maria, I believe, also sees Glendora, or doesn't see Glendora. She's from Mount Vernon. Are you ready? This was handed into the United States District Court to the Pro Se Clerk's office yesterday, May the 8th, 1996, Wednesday. And the defendants, this is a new lawsuit, and the defendants are Telecommunications Incorporated, Bob Magnus, John C. Malone, Fred A. Vieira, Brendan R. Clouston, J.C. Sparkman, Stephen M. Brett, Peter R. Barton, Larry E. Romrell, Barry P. Marshall, Gary K. Bracken, Bernard W. Shotters, Robert N. Thompson, Jerome H. Kern, R. E. Turner, Richard Wadman, Miles Rich, Brenda Cherry, tape operator, and any other Jane or John Doe on duty April 30th, 1996, 4 p.m. to midnight at 609 Center Street, Mamaroneck, New York, and Wendy Sirkin. Defendants. Jury trial demanded complaint. Complaint and motion for other relief. This action is brought pursuant to Title 47 of the United States Code 521 et sec. The Cable Communications Policy Act of 1984 is amended in 1992. 47 of the United States Code 531E, the First and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution. Title 42 of the United States Code, Section 1981 and 1983, Article 28. New York State Executive Law, Section 829.3, and New York Code Rules and Regulations 595.1, Title 9, for damages. Plaintiff is a citizen of the United States for 68 years, and her address is Box 416, White Plains, New York, 10602, Westchester County, 914-949-9495. Defendant's addresses are on the following 2 pages. And that brings us up to page 4. On April the 30th, 1996, Tuesday at 9:08 p.m., defendants censored Glendora's public access program on Channel 8, the system-wide public access channel for 20 municipalities in Westchester. Glendora was reporting what happened on April the 17th, 1996 in the Judge Connor Court on Glendora versus Malone et al. Just as soon as the program got to the point where Glendora was put on hold by the clerk, and the next voice was, "This is Judge Connor." Defendants turned down the audio, no more voices were heard, and the public could not hear the rest of the report. The censorship lasted until 9:32 p.m. until after Glendora's program was over and the next program was on. The video was cablecast throughout. The public missed what Judge Connor said to Glendora and what Glendora said to Judge Connor, and the demand that Glendora made in writing for the court to put in writing what it called Glendora to tell her happened ex parte behind Glendora's back. The demand by Glendora to TCI attorney Ben Wiles that he put in writing what he called and said to the court, and Glendora's exposure of the Malone law-breaking, lying, and covering up. Also censored were Judge Connor's statements. "Now look, Glendora, I'm a senior judge, and I don't have to stay on this case if I do not want to. I can get off this case if I want. Do you want me to get off the case and give it to one of the other judges?" Glendora: "Yes." Judge Connor: "All right, I'm off the case. Thank you." These conversations are on audio tape. It was the videotape of the audio tape that Glendora was playing on her program, A Chat with Glendora, when TCI censored the program at 9:08 p.m., April the 30th, 1996, Tuesday on Channel 8. Plaintiff Glendora, host and producer of A Chat with Glendora, a weekly series of half-hour programs seen over public access channels of 11 cable systems in Westchester, Rockland, and Manhattan, and Nassau, and Suffolk, seeks a judgment declaring that her constitutionally guaranteed freedom of speech and press were abridged and her statutory right to freedom from cable TV operator editorial control were violated, and awarding her compensatory and punitive damages in the amount of $500 million. End preliminary statement. This court has jurisdiction over the action pursuant to 28 United States Code Section 1343A4 and 28 United States Code Section 1331. And so forth. Plaintiff further invokes the court's pendent jurisdiction over any and all state law claims and causes of action which derive from the same nucleus of operative facts that gave rise to the federally based claims and causes of action. Parties. Plaintiff Glendora's description is in her paragraph 6 infra. Should be supra. Defendants' jobs and titles are listed in their most recent proxy statement, 1995, as below. Stephen M. Brett is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel. Fred A. Vieira is Executive Vice President of the company, Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive Officer of International. Peter R. Barton, Executive Vice President of the company since 94, of Liberty Media Corporation. Brendan Clouston, Executive Vice President of the company, President and Chief Operator of TCI Communications. Larry Romrell is President of Technology. Marshall is Executive Vice President and COO of TCI Communications. Bracken is Controller. And Thompson is Vice President of Policy Planning for TCI Communications. Sparkman is Executive Vice President of the company. Bob Magnus and Kim Magnus are father and son. And During the past 5 years, none of the company's directors or executive officers have had any involvement in such legal proceedings that would be material to an evaluation of his ability or integrity. No. What about the lawsuit that was filed January 3rd, 1996, Glendora versus Malone, Magnus, and TCI? Jerome Kern is a director of the company, a partner with a law firm of Baker and Botts, and he's located in Manhattan. R.E. Turner III is the director of Telecommunications Incorporated. He owns CNN. He's Ted Turner. Richard Wadman is the general manager of the local Westchester TCI cable system, under whose management the censorship took place. Miles Rich is in charge of the cable casting. Wendy Serkin is the public relations manager behind the home. All management and all defendants hide, and who makes all public statements. That ends the parties. And factual allegations. Glendora every week reports on television what happens in her fights for rights, what the lawyers do, what the lawbreakers do, and what the judges do. The night defendant censored her at 9:08 to 9:30 p.m. She was doing just that in the lawsuit Glendora versus Malone, Magnus, TCI et al., wherein same threatened to rob her and 100 other public access producers of system-wide Channel 8 on May 1st, 1996, and they did it. April the 30th, 96, Tuesday, 9 to 9:30 p.m. was the last night for a chat with Glendora on Channel 8 after 8 years every week. And defendants could not even do the last night right. In Glendora versus Malone, defendants promised if they took away Channel 8 from public access, the 20 municipalities by whom they are franchised would cablecast our programs, but said municipalities will not. Ergo, a chat with Glendora has been blacked out in all of these Westchester municipalities. This is a different cause of action, and it is embodied in a different lawsuit, Glendora versus Malone, 96 Civ 0140 JSR. The program defendant censored April 30th, 1996, Tuesday, 9:08 to 9:30 p.m. was Glendora's 2079th program. Defendants censored it, 1, because they did not want their law-breaking, lying, coercing, covering up to be exposed on TV, and 2, because Judge William E. Connor encouraged or compelled them to cover it up, his bad actions. Hence, there is color of state. Glendora videotaped the entire incident of the censorship. You saw that on the TV. It lasted for 40 minutes, this videotape of the censorship in action. Glendora's 3 witnesses who were present during the censorship. Glendora's videotape of the censorship in action will be cablecast on another cable TV system. This is how bad defendants are. It should be cablecast on the 20 municipalities in Westchester where the community interest is the highest, but they robbed us of our Channel 8 and gave us no other channel, and we are blacked out, all 100 of us. The first thing the next day, May 1st, 1996, Glendora's birthday, Franklyn went to 609 Center Street, Mamaroneck, and picked up a chat with Glendora, number 2079, to make certain that defendants could not sabotage the audio. Glendora screened number 2079, and the audio is perfect. Further, the VHS dub of the master tape was perfect audio. Further, the 8mm archive copy has perfect audio. This is the second time defendants censored Glendora's program. The first was March the 12th, 1996, Tuesday, 9 to 9:30 p.m., Channel 8, again by turning off the voice audio, not the music audio, again because they did not want the public to hear the bad, but true reports about them. And then we go through for the first claim for relief. Glendora reiterates and incorporates by reference each and every allegation in her paragraphs 1 to 17 as if fully set forth herein for each of these 8 claims for relief. The first claim for relief is that what TCI did was state action, abridging her freedom of speech in violation of the First and 14th Amendments. The second claim for relief is that they were significantly encouraged by Judge Connor, so it's under color of state, First and 14th Amendments. The third is that the administration of public access channels is an exclusive governmental function, and their censorship of Glendora's program deprived her of her right under 531E of the 1984 Cable Act to present public access programs free from cable operator editorial control. The fourth claim for relief states that insofar as censorship of her program was compelled by William E. Connor, the censorship deprived Glendora of her right under 531E to present public access programs free of cable operator editorial control, and this deprivation occurred under color of state, triggering Glendora's action against 42 United States Code 1981 and 1983. The fifth claim for relief, reiterating and incorporating by reference supra that defendant's censorship of Glendora's program deprived her of her right under 531E to be free from cable operator editorial control, regardless of whether the censorship was under color of state law or not. And the sixth claim is that for relief is that they return the program to TV. The seventh claim is that Glendora has a claim against them under the state law that no cable operator shall exercise editorial control. There's a state law and a federal law. No cable television company may prohibit or limit any program or class or type of program presented over a leased channel or any channel made available for public access. That's now New York service law. And then the eighth claim for relief is under the doctrine of pendant state jurisdiction. The defendants inflicted severe emotional distress with no physical effect, damaging seriously Glendora's career, her ability to get business for Glendora TV ads by taking all my time, her ability to find sponsors for Glendora Cheerful Look at Life by taking all of my time and resources. They also severely damaged her personal life and her married life and damaged her reputation. And that's end the statement of claims. Donald Silverman gave Glendora a right. It's already adjudicated to be on TV. And Judge Bryant did the same on July 19th, 1995. The Second Circuit did the same. Public access is a public forum. And that one night Glendora got 29 calls in a half an hour from her program in Nassau County. It is a public forum, that they are liable. They did it. Nobody else did it. They have no defense. They never will have. And the members of her class are threatened with immediate irreparable harm, punitive damages. They did it recklessly. They did it on purpose. They should be made an example of. And that's why the punitive damages are in the amount of $500,000. So, wherefore plaintiff prays that this complaint be treated as an affidavit in support of the motions contained herein, that the court award her $500 million, I meant to say, not 500,000, that defendants restore a program to Channel 8 every Tuesday, 9 to 9:30 p.m., where it has been 8 years, uncensored, that defendants make good all programs missed in prime time, and that the cost of this action be taxed against the defendants, and that plaintiff be awarded such other further relief as is just and proper. And that's the end of it, and I handed that in with my informa papyrus. Here, I'll show you the informa papyrus. That's Glendora versus Telecommunications Incorporated, and that's the second lawsuit. Against the Martial Arts Institute of America.
Frank, how are you, Frank? Hello, who's calling? This is Scott Lord. Oh? I heard you threw your case out of court today. What else you gonna do next? What's that? I was gonna inform you they threw your case out of court today, so let's see what you do about that, Frank.
That was Scott Lord at 9:15 p.m., October the 25th, 1993, Monday.
Which is 22 minutes long. 22 minutes long, these audio tapes. Hi there, everybody. I want to tell you what happened on Glendora versus Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, Jeffrey Barnes, and Tri-State Irrigation and Atlantis Lawn Sprinkler. First of all, I'll read you what was in the docket, some entries here in the docket. Affirmation by creditor Glendora to support motion to authorize trustee to withdraw his rescission of stipulation dated December 21st, 1992, and approve the stipulation dated July the 19th, 93 by Richard E. O'Connell. On September the 13th, 1993, certificate of service by creditor Glendora of affirmation in support of motion to authorize trustee to withdraw his rescission of stipulation dated December 21st, 92, and approved stipulation dated July 1993 by Glendora. A hearing held regarding the motion to authorize the trustee to withdraw his rescission of stipulation. This is the stipulation of Scott Lord that he would pay so much money every week on the judgment that the trustee got against him through the bankruptcy court. October the 8th, 1993, order granting motion to authorize trustee to withdraw his rescission of settlement stipulation dated and authorizing the trustee to settle and compromise the adversary proceeding, and judgment against Scott Lord upon terms and conditions set forth in the settlement agreement stipulation dated, again, July 19th, 1993, by Richard E. O'Connell. And I think you know all the other ones. I think these pages are out of order. Now, I told you last week that Scott Lord defaulted on his final payment. Then I found out that no, he had sent a check, that he did send a check. So he hadn't, well, he had defaulted, but he did send a check. All right, so this check was sent to the bank, and the check bounced. This is typically Scott Lord. This is how I met Scott Lord in 1986. This is what happened when I did meet him, and this is what started this whole thing. So here he writes another bad check. This is a crime in the state of New York, and I say lock him up. You know, he's pulled these bad check things too many times. And this is why the bank account, every time that I would read the bank account for the estate, for the bankruptcy estate of Atlantis Lawn Sprinkler, they would tell me that a check for $19,000 was not good at present. $18,000 was. And I kept wondering why was that so. So I kept inquiring until I found out that his payment had bounced. But then I found out around about Friday, October the 29th, that he had made good with two $500 bank money orders. So that means there was $19,200 in the estate. And here is more good news. Richard O'Connell, the panel trustee, says that the creditors will get 67 cents on the dollar. 67 cents on a dollar. From what little bit I know about the bankruptcy courts, that's very, very, very good. On Scott Lord's bankruptcy in 1985, his first one, then there was a second one, and then there's this one that we keep talking about, the third one. In 1985, his Chapter 13 bankruptcy with his wife Ariella, that only paid 10 cents on the dollar, and they never got around to making their final payments. For years and years, they kept defaulting and defaulting. And I pointed out to the trustee on this bankruptcy that he had this other one, which he said he didn't have on his petition, his bankruptcy petition. So when attention was brought to that, and the trustee for that was Michael Mackel, and so they got around, and I think Rothenberg, Scott Lord's lawyer, had something to do with it. he was staggered that there was another bankruptcy that he didn't know about, and I saw him in the clerk's office, and I saw him looking up that bankruptcy after I told the trustee at a hearing that there was another bankruptcy. So, I think Rothenberg had a lot to do with getting Scott Lord to make the final payments on that Chapter 13 bankruptcy of 1985. And Scott Lord's trustee then was Eisenberg.